There I was, at Florida Institute of Technology in the fall of 1980. I had gone to school to be an oceanographer, and my roommate at the university was in their commercial deep sea diving program, and he convinced me that the recruiters had told him you could make $100,000 a year, you'd have to risk your life, and I'm like, I could do that. I started scuba diving at age 11, so I had actually more experience than most of the guys that showed up there to go to school. What I did not know was college recruiters lie a lot. Yeah, maybe if you did it long enough, you made the 100,000, but you sure didn't make it when you got out of school. My name is Derek. Glad to meet everybody. That would make a big difference in the path that my life would take, though, switching to the commercial diving program and not becoming an oceanographer. I've had quite a collective experience over my years. I bought a one-way ticket and went to Singapore in 1983, in January of 83, to look for a job. And people often ask me, why did I buy a one-way ticket? That's because I didn't have enough money for a round trip ticket, and then still have some money once I got there to try and start a career. So I was only over there for about half a year. It was a really bad time to get into the commercial diving business at that time. Oil was really down in price, and pay and work is based on exploration of oil. From there I go back to the United States and went out into the Gulf of Mexico, and I dove there. I dove commercially for 15 years, both inshore and offshore. I started offshore, and then I would move inshore later on, which actually was a lot better as far as I was concerned, because I was a young guy and I wasn't locked up in a boat for long periods of time. I could go out and chase young women at night. And actually had a life. We lived in hotels and traveled around the eastern part of the United States, and some interesting experiences there. When I was in Singapore, though, I had met so many people that were out traveling the world at that time, and I had never heard of backpackers or anything like that. I was like, you've been on vacation for a year. And they're like, nope, not on vacation, we're traveling, which is different. And so I got hooked. That became my goal in life, was to be a traveler and not a long-term career like my father, who spent 40-some years in the same factory. So I'll go on as I talk about stuff, and I'm not going to follow any chronological order. But just a brief history. I go on to become a boat captain. I bought a sailboat with my wife, who I met in December of '86. And I spent 35 years with her. She passed away last year, but we spent 14 years in the Caribbean, and we'd work and go back and cruising. And when we first took off, our aspirations were to sail to Australia, and then we found that being offshore for a week or so at a time, just the two of us, was enough. We didn't have the electronics and stuff they have now, so we spent 14 good years cruising around the islands. Enjoyed every bit of it, met tons of people. I picked up my captain's license after I started running the boat and sailing down through the Caribbean. I'd hold that for 25 years, and then during that same time, in my mid to late 30s, I started flying airplanes. Became a commercial pilot and a flight instructor. Flight instructor was the way you build hours so you could move on to the airlines, and I had aspirations of doing that. And unfortunately, 9/11 happened, and that sort of curtailed my dream to be a commercial pilot, because the guys got furloughed for so many years, and I was semi-retired, let's say, at that point. So I've met a lot of interesting people. I've been into skydiving, paragliding, flying powered trikes, powered parachutes. What other crazy stuff? Meeting a lot of people, showing up in places maybe I shouldn't show up sometimes, like sailing into Guatemala during the Civil War. I heard it was a really cool place to go, but the guy that was telling me all about it had sort of forgot to mention there was a Civil War going on there at the time. So, I just have some interesting adventures to share with people. I used to share them with my wife. She was ill for many years, and we reminisce about stuff, but she's gone now, so I guess I'm going to reminisce with you guys, and I hope you got sexy bodies and not big beer bellies, because that's not real attractive to me. But I'm going to try and make most of these videos just lighthearted. like things that go bump in the night, like in the bottom of the ocean when you're working, or a lot of the times when I was working offshore, I couldn't see anything. Same thing working inshore. It would be pitch black, like being in a cave. So, got interesting stories about that. Things you shouldn't do when you're flying, skydiving, sailing, spearfishing. Met some very interesting people in the last 40 years. That's another thing that's always hooked me on travel. So for anybody that has dreams to go out and do stuff, I'd say don't dream about it, make them happen. We weren't rich. We worked hard to make things happen. We often did things on a shoestring budget when we were younger. And I was fortunate in my early 30s, somebody decided to mentor me. And they thought I was quite intelligent, and they talked me into getting into the stock market, which I thought the guy had lots of experience, only to find out now that I've been trading for many years that he had very little experience at all. But for me, I was quite lucky. In the first 15 months, I kept hitting home runs trading options, and it made a big change in my life. It changed everything. So right now I'm in Dumaguete in the Philippines. I came over here unscheduled, like most of my stuff. I left the States last year after my wife passed away, and went over to Turkey for a while, and then down to Egypt and India, and was trying to do a lot of diving. When I'm underwater, just taking my mind off of missing my wife and the events that had led up to that. So then after that, I spent some time in Thailand and came to the conclusion that I had no intentions to actually going back to the States and living anymore. So I flew home in November to see my family a little bit and see some friends, and I called one of my friend's son and told him to drive down to Florida. I had some stuff for him, and I gave him all my tools of 50 years and my fishing equipment and some guns and basically everything I owned. We loaded it up in his vehicle, and I wished him the best of luck. He has aspirations to go out and sail the ocean, so he's going to need a lot of that equipment. So I figure it was donated to a good cause. So I'm going to stay over here in this part of the world. I'll be popping up videos from different locations, hopefully with a little nicer backdrop than where I'm at today. I had planned to shoot this over by the ocean with the beautiful blue water behind me and the islands, and it's Easter Sunday and the resort's full of kids. So they're screaming and hollering and having a good time, and I hit a couple parks around here I've seen over the last couple of weeks, and same thing, they're all full. So I ended up in a quiet place, and like I say, I pop in and out of strange situations sometimes, but the only place I could find quiet this morning is I'm in a cemetery. But besides a couple people that have come through maybe to visit their family, and a cow that's hanging out around here behind me somewhere, and she's been nice and quiet. Yeah, I never know really where I'm going to end up. So that's my new channel. Hopefully I can make a little bit of money off of this, because I enjoy helping people that are less fortunate than I am. And I'm not a really rich guy, though. I have helped some people out in the past, and some of the best thing I've ever done. But things changed a little bit last year after my wife passed away, as far as financing and everything I was doing. So yeah, if I can get some extra money out of this and help some people, that'll be good. I adopted my Spanish teacher about 12 or 13 years ago in Guatemala. What is it? I can't say Therampalist, or however that is supposed to come out. That is a tongue twister for me. I never knew how expensive that could be. But I helped the young man get through college, and then after that I had the great idea to start a GoFundMe channel and raise some money to build him a house. Because after he was college educated, his parents bumped him out of the house, said, hey, you know, you're going to do well in life, and we're going to give your room to your little brother. So yeah, I helped them out, and it was one of the better things I've done in my life and with my money. So yeah, if I can help people out along the way, because I make a few extra coins off of here, that'll be cool. Again, this is really just to share my experiences with some other people, and if you have dreams of traveling or dreams of doing anything, quit dreaming about them and actually get out there and make it happen. I mean, I started out on a shoestring budget for everything I've ever done as I was younger. I'm not that way now, but when I was younger, it's like we just made it happen. It's like everybody was saying, oh, you can't do that. And it's like, oh yeah, we can. We worked hard when we had to, and we put the money together, and we took off on a sailboat in 1990. I think we had about $6,000 in our pocket. and our intentions were to maybe sail down to the South Pacific, though I didn't think we could get down there on that amount of money. But the boat was well provisioned, and I did a lot of spear fishing, and I learned free diving from an old guy in the Bahamas who was 50 at the time and said, "Oh, I can't dive much more than 100 feet now." And now it's quite common, you hear people doing free diving like that, but back then it was the islanders that were doing that kind of stuff. So he taught me to be a free diver and how to support myself for hunting in the islands and never go hungry. And yeah, we turned $16,000 into about 14 months of cruising before we came back to the States and made a little bit of money and took off again. So yeah, if I can inspire some people to chase their dreams, cool. And if I can entertain you while you're having a beer and I tell you about things that go bump in the bottom of the ocean, or what it's like to crawl up a pipeline 1,000 feet or something like that, well, enjoy it. It's some different stories you're probably not hearing from your friends. So anyway, I'm gonna keep this going. This is like my 4th or 5th take this morning. I keep either don't have the plug in all the way on the speaker or other things, and so I've been missing things, and I shot a couple of videos that ran into about 18 minutes. What I'm gonna try and do is get some content up on this channel as quickly as I can. I was fortunate enough to meet another YouTuber here yesterday, Mark Thornton. He has a channel called Every Man Has a Story in the Philippines. Some interesting people he gets to interview on there, and he did mine yesterday, but there's a lot of other people I've seen on his channel, and he sort of encouraged me to get this going. So I said I wanted to put a plug in for my channel, but I hadn't actually got this one up. I've got another channel called Sky 5 Jump, which is just personal videos I've put up over the years. I just posted some sailing videos that I've had from a few years ago you might find interesting. I found, well, actually my wife spotted the wreck down in the Caribbean. I'm not going to say exactly where, in 2003. And she saw a big anchor, and she would often spot fish for me. And she couldn't really do too much diving or anything at that time, so she was just floating around. And she pointed out an anchor, and I swam over to the anchor, and I looked down, and I'm expecting a boat anchor, and it's not a boat anchor. It's a 15-foot long shank with 6-foot flukes, and it's an old shipwreck. And at first I just noticed the anchor, but I started looking out across the bottom and seeing an unnatural line that shouldn't be there in nature, and I started swimming out it and started finding cannons. Found a total of 17 cannons at that time, and 2 more of those large anchors. And for many years I wasn't able to do anything with it. And then in 2016 I met a gentleman that wanted to invest in that project and see if we could get something going. So I took a 28-foot boat and sailed 1,500 miles by myself down there, shot some video and some pictures of what's on the bottom so to prove it was there. But unfortunately the government that's over there just won't let us do anything, and we were willing to donate everything to the government because this gentleman had connections with the History Channel and Discovery Channel, and he was part of one of the largest, I believe, advertising firms over in Europe. So he had connections, and he's like, there's a lot of money in the film work versus just the maybe gold, or who knows what's there. I really don't know. I had most people think it's an old Spanish wreck. Excuse me. One other gentleman thought it might have been a privateer, but after researching more, don't believe that is the case. Believe it's an old Spanish wreck of some sort. I've been told they think it's a gunship. But either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm no longer in that part of the world. I've given that information to somebody else to work with, and maybe they can do something with it. All right, there's my alarm going off telling me not to go over my time limit again here. And I don't know how to turn that off right now because I can't see anything in the sun. All right, everybody, welcome to the new channel. I'm going to try and get some stories going here, and I'll start posting them on a regular basis, and who knows where I'll be posting from. Hopefully not the cemetery the next time. Goodbye. Cheers.